Hello and welcome to AgriFocus, brought to you by Agriland. For our final episode of this season, we'll be taking a short break for the next few weeks before we're back with a new season of the podcast. I'm Stella Meehan and I'm joined today by Chagas Dairy Beef 500 Programme Advisor Fergal Maguire. We all know that in recent weeks, grass growth challenges have been experienced by many farmers across various different sectors. Cold and wet weather followed by warmer temperatures and dry weather has hampered growth in many areas, and farmers are increasingly concerned about dry matter and quality levels. Up to last weekend, grass growth rates were averaging about 52 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day on dairy farms. But Fergal, thanks for joining us today. So how are things looking after a somewhat decent weekend in terms of weather when it comes to grass growth? Some areas got rain.
So look, it's probably a bit hit and miss. Some places got maybe 10 mil of rain. Some places only got 1 or 2 mils of rain, particularly down the southeast. I don't think they got as much rain as we got up further up here in the northeast. But grass is very tight on many of the farms I work with. Silage has been in probably the last 3 weeks. So most of them are feeding them along the fence. Some of the farmers are putting silage as ring feeders and just trying to slow down the rotation a bit. But yeah, no, look, hopefully things have started green up. Look, we see it on our lawns. The grass is going a bit quicker than it was there the last 2 weeks, so hopefully that's going to translate. So look, we're probably going to get close to maybe 60, growth rates of up at 60, which will be a help. But look, typically on the farms I've been dealing with, they're down at around 40, so hopefully go up towards 60. So look, in just in early June, we were just running through the rotation just a bit quick, so that's why a lot of lads introduced silage. So look, probably it's just replicating around the country. It's very tight.
And Fergal, what about the quality of it then? That's I suppose another issue. Obviously, with the last couple of days, there might be good growth again for a few days in many areas, but the quality of it is also a challenge for farmers, I believe.
Yeah. So look, even in some of the highly stocked farms, quality is on the poor side. It's got very stemmy, so the grass plant just wanted to shoot out very quickly. So even from the first week in June, we could see a lot of paddocks were shooting out at covers of maybe 1,100-1,200. It was starting to shoot out. That's probably been a helping growth either, just because the plant's gone into the reproductive stage. So look, we had a drop of rain. Most people place a drop of rain. I wouldn't be scared to go out and top now just to correct any paddocks that are a bit hairy looking. But be careful, don't go and top every paddock on the farm. I'd be encouraging maybe to top around 30% of the paddocks this week and then see more rain, because looking at the weather forecast, it changes a bit again. So yes, I was looking at maybe there was another 20 mil of rain going to come before the weekend, but that seems to have changed with us. Anyway, there's only 2 or 3 mil of rain coming. So look, maybe top 30% of the paddocks, but don't go crazy and top everything. And just see what the way the weather is going to come for next week, because soil moisture deficit. So look, it was the cold weather probably in June that was hampering growth. Look, you can see some on the heavier farms, grass is coming, so the grass was still growing maybe in June, but look, there in the last week or two, I think it's soil moisture deficit what's the issue. So we had that drying wind, and the rain was falling, was drying up just as quick. So look, we still have a soil moisture deficit, and it hasn't been corrected with that drop of rain that came at the weekend. I was hoping a bit more rain to come. It has greened up everything up, but we just aren't still at the same growth rates that I'd be expecting for this time of year. So don't go crazy with the topper just yet. Probably one of the things we have to look at, probably nitrogen use is probably down on most farms I'm dealing with. And look, the big push was clover, cut your nitrogen from the 1st of June onwards. Clover doesn't seem to have done that well this year. Both red and white clover on our farms haven't just done as well. Probably with the cold weather, it hasn't done as well. So some of them paddocks could do with maybe a top of nitrogen, maybe 15-20 units of protected urea, or 18-6-12 if you have the allowance. But just be careful. Clover is just not working to the same extent, probably with the cold conditions that you normally expect. So and look, if you haven't gone out with any nitrogen fertilizer in the last 3 weeks, there's still a drop of rain coming before Wednesday.
What about like spraying, for like thistles and things? I mean, I know spraying can be limited to certain times as well,
Probably your thistles is starting to flower now at the moment, so...
Well, they're driving me nuts anyway, but
right, yeah. So they're starting to flower now, so probably the best thing to do with thistles now would be just to top them, and maybe go back in a spray in for a month to 6 weeks' time. Look, ducks in silage ground, ducks didn't seem to be a big problem in the first cut. Second cut, it looks to have just taken off. So again, look, you need to be thinking of going with a spray for ducks if you're not cutting in the next 2 weeks. So look, that's the other thing is the second cuts are looking very light at the moment. I wouldn't be overly worried. If you remember back to this time last year, we actually were in a drought last year. You don't remember, a lot of people don't remember, but we actually had a bit of a drought in June. Second cuts looked very poor. I thought it was going to be a disaster, but we had a drop of rain came in late June, a bit like what we have now, and second crops actually bulked up very, very well. So look, there's probably 2 to 3 weeks before most of the second cuts are going to be cut. I wouldn't be panicking this yet. I think there's still time for second cuts to bulk up.
And Fergal, you mentioned there last year, and sometimes people can forget it because I suppose with 8 or 9 months of rain, all you can remember is sort of rain in the recent past, and we forget about what happened last year, the year before. But that's a good point. Like we'll say in Chagas, have you noticed changes to grass growth trends over the years? Anything significant, or is it much part of the course really over the last number of years?
Yeah, look, since 2018 we had probably one very good growing year, 2021. Other than that, like we've always had drops off and significant drops off on growth. So look, it is challenging in the last couple of years just managing grass. So we're going from a big surplus to a deficit very, very quickly. Last year was the exact same. In May we went to a big surplus and then we went to a deficit. And we came back again in July and August. But look, we are seeing a trend towards this growth rate is a bit more unpredictable than that. Well, we had probably in 2010 onwards, we had great growing years up until 2017, 2018, and then it's just got a bit hit and miss at the moment. And then maybe it's just maybe it could be down to climate change, or it could be just this pattern in the weather that we just can't. We've always had bad years and good years. So look, just the last couple of years seem to be very challenging for farmers, and the mood isn't great with a lot of beef farmers. More so than even with price, bad weather puts farmers in a worse mood when everything's going against them. And we had it very challenging. So you can really think from this time last year until now, farmers haven't really got a break from the weather. Do you know what I mean? It's been a constant struggle, and it's probably having a bit of a toll on farmers with the mood that's around at the moment.
Oh, it definitely is. I can see it myself. And I suppose farmers are trying to do what they can then, with grass growth rates in some areas, maybe static, coming back a bit in other areas, and trying to do what they can. The dairy lads and lasses, I suppose, are worried about making sure that they keep up the protein levels and so on. And with the stemmy grass there, you have a bit more of a challenge with that, And the beef, I suppose, are just trying to maintain the levels, get their second cut, making sure they have a fodder for the winter and so on. Should they be doing something now, Fergal? We say even in the beef folk, like, should they have a fodder budget? Is that something that they should be completing?
Yeah, look, that's something. Yeah, they should be doing that. Like first cuts weren't wonderful; they were okay, but they weren't wonderful. Quality might be good in a lot of cases, but we just mightn't have the quantity that we needed. Look, we need to build up a bit of a reserve. We've seen what happened last year. Now is the time to look at it. There is meadows that can be got. Do you know what I mean? That can be bought at reasonable enough money now for second cuts. That could be fertilised, and you can make decent quality silage. You won't make Rockafew silage, but you could still make 70 DMD silage on some of them. So if you fertilise it right, so that's something that could be looked at. Other things that could be looked at would be to drop your stocking rate. So I see some of our farmers, a lot of our farmers are over 2.2, 2.3 livestock units per hectare, so they're heavily stocked. Some of them did decide earlier on in the year just to drop numbers a small bit, so they sold some of the cattle live that they would normally not have done, and that has had a big impact in terms of that the demand is not just up. So at the moment, growth is probably exceeding demand on a lot of them beef farms. But they have done something. They were looking at they were going to be short on grass if they didn't have an exceptional year, so they sold some of the cattle light. Other things that could be done on farms, other than going out and buying meadows, would be making sure that you're putting out the correct fertiliser. So you're putting your slurry. if it's very low indexes, you should be thinking about looking at putting some sort of a compound fertilizer that can help your yield as well. Other things we'll be looking at is to reduce demand, and maybe even if grass growth takes off, would we maybe meal could be still kept in with calves in a lot of cases. It's if they're getting a kilo of meal, that could be maybe up in 25% of their intake, so that'll help things a small bit. Also, as you were saying there, grass covers got stemmy, quality isn't there, so you need to be keeping them calves. So look, maybe now is not time to put a meal from them calves yet. Other things that could be done would be, there is even heifers there that could be looked at. So we're heading into July, that could be looked at. They could be pulled to one side, they could be put onto 4 or 5 kilos of meal, and they could be finished after 50 to 60 days. So look, there's heifers there now that might be 18, 19 months old that are 450, 460 kilos. Them heifers could be pulled to one side and fed on. Ideally, you'd like to run them on and try to get it finished off grass, but if growth rates are low and you're looking to buy or you're looking to gather up silage, that could be one way. Same thing with bullocks. There's bullocks there, but Thrive has been actually fairly good in the last 2 months. So I've seen in cases there, cattle have been doing 1.2, 1.3 dairy bred stock, doing 1.2, 1.3 livestock units since they went out. So there is cattle there that have done very well. Again, some of them bullocks could be put to one side and start being fed meal, and that will just reduce demand. So look, even if you have good growth rates, and hopefully we will, and you're tight in silage, it'll give you a chance to make silage on different paddock.
I suppose it is something that farmers maybe have to look at if year on year they're consistently finding, the midsummer challenge there in terms of fodder and grass. If they're consistently seeing that year after year, even in the beef farmers, that overall, and they do a fodder budget, maybe it is, as you said, time to be starting thinking about reducing stocking rate there,
Yeah, that probably comes at a bit of a caveat. So look, any of the work we're doing is showing that in order to get a profit of over €500 net profit per hectare, you need to be over a stocking rate typically of over 170. So you need to be at a high stock rate in these calf to beef systems. Look, ideally you'd like to be less than that, but that's just the way it is at the moment. We're not pushing or anything like that, but just anyone that's at a higher stock rate seems to be able to make more money at the calf to beef. So you're more than likely able to get over that €500 net profit per hectare than if you're below it. Now look, there is lots of farmers that are below it, below the 170, and they're still making decent money from it. So go back to your original question, should we be dropping back numbers? There could be other things that we could think about other than dropping back numbers. Maybe lads that have been typically finishing maybe Frisian bullocks, they could look maybe at these more beef bred bullocks. So bullocks would have more genetic potential that could be finished that bit earlier. A heifer system seems to work. So any of the work down in Johnson Castle has shown that heifers can be finished at 18, 19, 20 months of age. So they could be drafted at this time of the year. So it's taking your demand of so if they could be drafted for further finishing, we will take the demand of the grazing block. So stuff like that there, maybe incorporating maybe a bit of heifers into your system that you can reduce that stocking rate in the main grade and at this time of the year when things seem to be getting tight the last couple of years.
Are we still looking at a 21-day grazing rotation?
No, look, I'd say you'd be looking at more 25-day rotation at the moment. A lot of farms. So what I seem to be what seems to be working well is that you're just whatever. So if you have 40 hectares of ground, divide that by your 25. That's all you can go. So that's 1.2 or 1.3 hectares that you should be moving through each day. And if you're moving quicker than that, 1.2 or 1.3, you need to be doing something. So that would be bringing in a bit of silage or something like that there. 21-day rotation at the moment, I think, is just a bit tight. I don't think you get into the 1,400 covers that ideally you like to go if you're at a 21-day. You need that extra 4 or 5 days maybe to get up to your 1,400 cover. Look, in terms of what's happening on pasture base, so typically on the dry stock side, I know we talk on the dairy side, it has cover per livestock unit and stuff like that. You shouldn't be dropping back by 180. In the beef side of the house, we kind of look at days ahead. So looking at pasture base, on dry stock farms, there's 18 days ahead, so it seems that there's lots of grass around, but like typically we're looking at around 12 to 14 days. That's what you'd be looking at. And if you're less than that, you'd be getting worried. But it's very farm. I'd say there's a lot of farms that wouldn't be at that 12 or 14 days ahead of them. So
yeah, it just depends on the area as well.
Yeah. So look, slowing down your rotation, bringing it back to a 25-day rotation, I think is good practice at the moment.
So here we are, I suppose, at the beginning of July, Fergal. What would be your advice, be it a dairy farmer or a beef farmer at the minute, in terms of their grazing and the grass growth? Like, what is the next advice, we'll say, for the next 4 weeks in terms of weather and what they should be doing?
Yeah, so look, the first thing I'd be looking at would be nitrogen. So look, there's still rain coming, so I wouldn't be afraid still to put out the nitrogen. So growth rates, it's not like 2018 when we were at a standstill. We were down at 20. Even last year we were down at 20 growth rates of 20 in June. We're up around 40 and 50. So I still say keep the nitrogen out. The rain keeps coming, keep the nitrogen out. And dairy farms, you're talking about a unit a day. By dry stock farms, probably, especially the lower stock ones, wouldn't need to be going out with that there. So look, it depends on your stock rate. That can go from 14 units to 20 units. You need to be putting out every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Then look, that's looking at your P's and K's. So you do see a good response when a plant is stressed. You do see a good response if you do have an allowance for P and K. You see it with slurry. A lot of places that got slurry and it got rain afterwards, they're the fields that seem to have the most grass on it, so they were the ones that grew the most. Probably it's coming from the P's and K's. So when a plant is a bit stressed, if you have an allowance for P and K, I go at an 18-6-12 in the next round, or something like that, 18-6-12 or 10-20, whatever is required. Keep your rotation at 25 days. Look, top some of that paddocks that have got stemmy and they're a bit dirty looking, or maybe fertilise some of them paddocks for silage. That's another way of correcting it. But them paddocks do need to be corrected if we continue to get damp, growthy weather. But if the rain isn't forecast after that, I'd hold on up. But look, I do 30% of the paddocks that need to be topped. I top them now before Wednesday, and then judge it again for the following week. There's more paddocks need to be topped. Because topping, especially if it gets dry, topping does have a big impact on regrowth. And
then I'll just move to something more general, Fergal, if you don't mind. Then obviously we had the Chagas beef open day in Grange recently. What was the main talking point or talking points among the farmers who turned up to that? Yeah, so look, I would have been on the dairy calf, the beef village, probably coming from the boards, some of the work from Nicky, from the research on Grange, has shown that, look, purchasing high commercial beef value calves on clover swards can leave a 40-hectare farm with over €50,000 net profit before single farm payment. So that was a big talking point. We're probably not just seeing that level yet on our dairy B500 farms. We have a range from 96 or something like that, up all the way up to around €1,400 a hectare. So look, there is a big range within that. But look, calf to beef, and we really focus on calf to beef. There's no room for errors in terms of performance. Them cattle have to keep moving the whole way on and finish 2 years of age. But it's interesting that these higher beef mare calves do seem to be leaving a profit behind them. But look, you don't want to pay too much for them type of calves on when you do go and purchase them. Other things that was the dairy calf to beef side of the house. The stuff on red clover, that seemed to be interesting there. So talking to lots of farmers who have put red clover in the last 2 years, they seem to be getting away with no chemical fertiliser on the swards and getting decent yields. I was talking to one man, he was telling me that he got 27 bales to acre last year from red clover and the slurry only. So that seems to be working. Then look, that's the red clover time beside the house. Yeah, look, it was a good day. Farmers, I think, got a lot from it. The mood was, some of the farmers were just giving out about growth rates and stuff like that there. But beef price is reasonable, and so look, they're happy enough with beef price at the moment. If it continues, I'd say they'd be happy afterwards. And then, Fergal, you mentioned there, I suppose, the calves and you mentioned dairy calf to beef as well. But In recent years, it would seem that there's a certain number of farmers who are rearing calves for a while on the beef side.
Yeah.
And then there's a high attrition rate then after that. It's like they get to a certain point and they kind of get out of it then. You know, is there any particular reason for that?
Yeah, look, I always say calf to beef. You can make good money from calf to beef, very good money per hectare. You could lose your shirt at it very quickly. There's a lot to learn with calf to beef. With suckler cows, there is that room for error for making poor quality of silage. Do you know what I mean? Your suckler cow will convert poor forage into milk that will feed a calf, and you can still have decent level of performance without having like growth rates, without having top quality grass and management. Where we see the lads who are operating at the higher end of profitability on the calf to beef side of the house, they are as good. I was a dairy advisor for 5 years. These lads are as good as any dairy farmer in terms of grass and management. So they're moving their cattle, whether it be calves or your bigger cattle, every 2 days. They have a good paddock system set up. They're getting the cattle out early. They're doing a bit of on-off grazing. Is that feasible for a lot of part-time farmers? I don't know. They're making 75 DMD silage, as good as any silage that's been made by any winter milk producer in the country. So they have an animal that is performing every day that's on his farm. What's probably typically happening on why there's such a big drop in rate is that the calves might be looked after good enough in the first year. They're probably fed a good bit of meal to hold them together. But we see a big drop off in live weight gain over the first winter. So we see a lot of lads only doing maybe 0.1, 0.2 of a kilo over the first winter. That also checks the growth the following year. But then when they go out to grass, the first month they might get good performance, but then paddocks get heavy and stemmy, and they might be let into a field for a week or 10 days. Performance takes a big drop. So you could see some of our lads could be doing, on average over the first summer, they could be doing a kilo a day. I'd say the average dairy calf to beef lad might be doing 0.5 of a kilo. So that's a half a kilo over 200 days. That's 100 kilos. So that's the difference being able to finish an animal at 24 months of age or 21 months of age or 22 months of age than at your 30, 31, 32 months of age. So there I see a big thing. Look, genetics is probably another big area. Now, I know the whole CBV value will help that, but you could have a farmer that could be buying 10 lovely looking Angus calves. On day one, they look the exact same. They're 55, 60 kilos. But by the time they're finished, it could be 50 or 60 kilos between the worst and the best one. So, look, genetics has an issue. And then probably the health side of the house. So, the less checks that calf gets, so if you get a bad outbreak of pneumonia and it spreads, that's going to have a big impact on performance. So, you need to be very on top of your herd health planning as well. So look, there's a lot to go wrong with calf to beef. There's a lot that can go right as well. There can be good money made out of it. So we do see lads making continuously over €1,000 net profit per hectare. There's a few farmers I deal with that are making over €1,000 per hectare on a number of years. That's before your single farm payments. But there's other lads that I've been dealing with in the discuss groups, and they're losing money at calf to beef, and that's why they don't stay in with it. Probably the other thing is labour. So calf to beef, it's generally seen to be less labour intense than, say, a suckler. You don't have to cow the calf, or you don't have any wild cows and stuff like that there. But you do have continuous work with calf to beef. So if you're feeding meal to cows the whole way through the summer, if you're setting up your grass and management, there is labour there as well. It's not just a complete lack of labour that you might, so say if you see lads who are dropping out maybe calf to beef, they might go back towards store cattle to beef where there's less labour involved. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that first year as calves, rearing the cows and stuff like that. But look, we run a calf to beef course, so a new entrant calf to beef course. Well, a lot of the lads are also existing lads, so it goes through the different stages that you have to be really good at in terms of making a good profit of calf to beef. If you're treating it, just putting your cows out to a big field and hoping that you want to make the money that they're talking about, there's not a hope.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for on the podcast today. And thanks very much to our guest, Chagas Dairy Beef 500 Programme Advisor, Fergal Maguire. And thank you for joining us on today's final episode in this AgriFocus podcast season. Please like and share the podcast with anyone that you think might be interested. And make sure you follow Agriland to be notified of the return of the series in a few weeks' time. But for now, goodbye and take care.